LiberalViewer present.
So the federal supermax prison in Florence, Colorado may take away more rights from its inmates than any other American prison, with 23 hours a day of total isolation in conditions psychologists have found can actually cause mental illness. That's why this supermax prison is reserved for the hardest to control prisoners convicted of the most heinous crimes. And that's why the American Civil Liberties Union of Colorado put out a statement opposing the placement of prisoners there that the Bush administration left in Guantánamo Bay without convicting them of anything, with many never having even been charged. But the ACLU's problem of placing prisoners who have never been convicted of anything into America's strictest supermax prison is never really reported in the Fox News coverage of the ACLU statement that aired last week during the primetime news program Special Report with Bret Baier, as you can see in this clip.
The American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, supports President Obama's plan to close the detention facility at Guantánamo Bay, Cuba. But it is very critical of the suggestion that the terror suspects be transferred to Colorado's supermax prison, where some of the country's most dangerous criminals are kept in solitary confinement 23 hours a day. Executive Director Catherine Hazuri says despite the conditions at Guantánamo that include what she called psychological and physical torture, quote, at least they had 2 hours of exercise per day and some contact with others, if only by yelling from cell to cell.
Now, notice how that quote supposedly from the ACLU press release starts with a capital A and no ellipsis, as if that's where the sentence actually starts, even though the complete sentence from the ACLU was, while at Guantánamo they endured psychological and physical torture such as waterboarding and sexual degradation, but at least they had 2 hours of exercise per day and some contact with others, if only by yelling from cell to cell. And the Fox News story concluded with a partial quote that was even more deceptive, as you can see in the rest of the story here.
Hazuri concludes supermax would amount to simply another form of torture.
Now, at least that Fox News quote starts with an ellipsis, though it ends with a period, even though that's not the end of the sentence, which actually reads, waterboarding and the like won't happen at supermax, but for these men awaiting trial, indefinite detention in total sound and sight isolation is simply another form of torture, one which makes a mockery of innocent until proven guilty. And that's not just a problem of deceptive punctuation in the quotations, because if you read the ACLU news release, which you can find at tinyurl.com/Gitmo to supermax, you'll find the ACLU's main concern reiterated again and again in that statement is the problem of placing prisoners who have never been convicted of anything into America's strictest supermax prison. But that concern's not really communicated in the Fox News story I just showed, making it qualify, I think, as one of the more than half a dozen Fox News smear jobs against the ACLU I've documented with my videos. But I want to know what you think. Did the Fox News story I just showed accurately communicate the reasoning behind the ACLU's opposition to placing prisoners who have never been convicted of anything into America's strictest supermax prison? Or did the story distort that position to put it in a negative light? And given the number of Fox News smear jobs against the ACLU I've documented with my videos, why is a media company like Fox News that relies on the First Amendment to protect its ability to run deceptive propaganda under the guise of journalism so seemingly unsupportive of the ACLU, an organization with a track record of robust support for First Amendment freedom of the press?
YouTube, you decide.